please rise and we will recite the pledge together. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
You're all right. Okay, thanks. All right. Roll call right now. Ms. Johnson is not here, but we still expect her. Next item is the approval of the agenda. Everyone has had an agenda for a while. Do I have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Motion to accept second.
Second.
Motion second. If you're in favor of the motion, please respond by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Now, the special items, is there any individual here to address the board on an agenda item or a non-agenda item? Okay, we'll go then to the second, which is TSBA Board of Distinction presentation. And we have Mr. Brett Henley today from Coffee County. And last year, I was made, whether that was should have been done or not, we'll let other people decide that. I was made a director for the South Central region, which is, I think we either have the state TSBAs divided into either 8 or 9 regions. But as I researched, I found out that the person that was supposed to be the director, Mark Clark from Fayetteville, had been promoted, and he's now vice president on a train to soon become president. And then the second person that took his place is Brett Henley from Coffee County. And he's now been elevated to state treasurer. So actually what I am is nothing but third string.
Not the case at all. It's not the case at all.
You're fine. Brett, we'll turn it to you.
I do appreciate that, and Pat, you are a great addition to our TSBA board. Pat has been I know each of you haven't been able to be part of it or anything like that with them or see him in action, but he has actually been a very tremendous asset so far.
Thank you, but we still maintain its third string.
Nowhere near. Board of Distinction Award is a really prestigious award given by TSBA. This plaque I want to present to you all, but I'd like to say a couple of words first, basically spotlighting it. Wishing to spotlight outstanding board performance, the Tennessee School Boards Association created its Board of Distinction program to recognize the highest standards of performance by a board as a whole. This award, one of TSBA's most prestigious, celebrates the achievements of those boards that have met the challenge of leadership in every area of their board responsibility. To be designated as a Board of Distinction, the school board must meet specific requirements in 4 key areas: planning, policy, promotion, and board development. These areas include such elements as creating 5-year plans, reviewing and maintaining their policy manual, participating in TSBA district and state meetings, conducting a self-evaluation, and achieving and maintaining necessary boardsmanship levels for each member. As the requirements are extensive, not every board qualifies as a Board of Distinction. Your board is among those select few. On behalf of the Tennessee School Boards Association, I am proud to present the Board of Distinction Award to the Tullahoma Board of Education. Congratulations to each of you and to your board as a whole. I'd like to suggest we do a round of applause.
You want a picture? You want to get in? Next, Mr. Lynch, who is Executive Director for TOS, which is Tennessee Organization of School Superintendents.
Thank you. Is it okay if I stand here?
Please.
Tonight it's my pleasure to recognize you all as Director of Schools or your Superintendent. But before I do that, I want you to know from our organization how proud and how much we appreciate you as a school board. Because as a superintendent who has served many years in Tennessee, I can tell you that we know that we cannot do this work alone. It takes a solid Board of Education, and on behalf of TOS, we want to thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your service, but also thank you for your cooperation and your support of your superintendent and director, because board relations and superintendent relations truly is very important in the field of education, and it goes straight into the classroom. But tonight, other than saying thank you to the board, I want to say a special thank you to your superintendent director. I have been all across the state. I just retired as director of schools in Hamilton County a year ago, and just assumed this responsibility. And everywhere I've been, I have said that I have 16 years of experience in Hamilton County. And wow, until you come to Tullahoma. I'm a rookie compared to Dr. Lawson. Dr. Lawson is a leader among leaders. You all have helped him grow, I know as a board, but he has also helped you grow as a board. Dan, not only is he a tremendous leader, tremendous superintendent here at Tullahoma, he's also a leader among his peers. Already been chosen as Tennessee Superintendent of the Year. The region decided to select Dr. Lawson again, not because he was going out, but because he deserved it. So tonight, I'm going to ask Dr. Lawson if you would join me in front and center. And it is my honor to recognize him as the 2019 South Central, and I'll move right here in just a second if that's okay, Tennessee Superintendent of the Year. So Dr. Lawson, would you stand up here? Before I hand the plaque, the last thing I do want to say, and I know everybody knows this, there's not a greater honor that one can receive than to be recognized by your peers. So, Dr. Lawson, again, we're very proud of you. I know this entire community and board is. We're certainly going to miss you, but we feel like that you're still going to be with us. Congratulations. Thank you for your leadership. Appreciate it.
All right. Well deserved.
Thank you. Certainly, let me echo Dale's words. This is not a solo act. I get to serve as a conductor of a great orchestra, and I get to have a great board of directors who provides a vision, provides resources, and provides the magic to make that orchestra perform on a daily basis. Thank you all. Thank you.
And Dr. Lawson, Linda moved Bell presentation.
Tammy, you're on?
I'm going to defer to the professional.
Got it.
Melissa Garner. I guess I should. This is Melissa Garner from Linda Bell, and she was with us 2 years ago. And so she's the Director of School Services for Linda Bell, and she's going to give us a review of last year's implementation of the program in our system.
Perfect.
Thanks, Tammy. I appreciate that. New board member since I was here last, so I'm going to try and keep it brief, but give you kind of the background of what we're doing here, who I am, what I'm doing here. So, yeah, just bear with me, and I'll have plenty of time for questions at the end. Typically do a project update, just let you know what the data look like from the year before, really what our goals are moving forward. The reason I love coming here, lots of reasons, but two of the big reasons are I used to be a classroom teacher, so I was one of those casualties of the profession that left within the first 5 years because I didn't know how to teach reading. And I think this is something that our teachers face nationwide, and I'm actually a product of, my family's from the South, so that's my street credibility, but I grew up in California, and I'm a product of the credentialing program there. I have, I think, 4 school partnerships in California, and I'm seeing them struggle with the same things that I struggled with when I was a teacher. I've been out of the classroom for about 17 years. So I'm really blessed to be here because I get to work with some really great teachers and some really awesome students in Tullahoma. And one of the things I love about working in Tennessee, and I get to do a lot of conference presentations and share research with lots of different folks. I was just in a charter school conference in Nashville a few weeks ago. And it's always fun to work in Tennessee, I think, because you guys are on the cutting edge of what's best for students and what's best for teachers in terms of reading, language acquisition, literacy acquisition, which I think is huge. I got to actually rub shoulders with your superintendent of the department at the state level, the superintendent, and just she's pretty innovative too, I think, and it's fun to be here for that reason. And teachers here really, really get what we do, and it's a lot of fun to see it in action. So I actually have some student video for you today. I could probably give this presentation without having any sort of visual aids because I can get you all to picture it. This is what I do for a living. So I have a little bit of I have a data update, of course, kind of the aggregate data for the school year, 2017-18. I have a little brief refresher on the approach our programs take in terms of cognition and its relationship to literacy. It's what we all do naturally as good readers and spellers and comprehenders. What we've been really lucky to be a part of is some really great academic research out there that's now starting to map that stuff cognitively and what that really means to be a good reader and what that looks like cognitively, so that we can replicate that for kids that struggle with that. And not just kids, but adults. So I'm going to give you 3 examples to kind of just seal it all up for you. If you've heard me speak before, this is going to be probably familiar. But if I were to ask you how many, raise your hand if you're a classroom teacher or have been in the classroom at all. I know I've got my familiar faces out there. Oh, great, okay, it's going to resonate with you. So if I were to ask you how many sounds in the word cat, how many sounds, you'd say there's 3 sounds. Does it matter what order they come in? Of course it does, right? This is all about spelling, it really does matter. So what's the first sound in the word cat? That's right. And this is a very engaging, I love it, you guys are always willing to do it too. What's the second sound in the word cat? And the last sound? Yeah, so that's that auditory processing. So if you take the extreme example of someone who can't do that, that'd be a dyslexic. They don't auditorily perceive sounds and words and put them together with their respective letters, right? Their symbol. So that's one processing system, that auditory processing. So if I were to ask you what letters do you picture for the word cat, you'd be able to tell me I see what letters? C-A-T. But you told me that first sound was a k sound. So couldn't I represent it with a K? That'd phonetically be fair, but if I were taking a spelling test, would that work? No. So that's that visual component. How do you know that C looks better than a K in that word cat? You know because it's a real word, right? So that orthographic processing, that visual, what we call symbol imagery, that goes together with that sound is just as important. And we all know to be fluent on the page, that visual component's really, really important because now you've got words that don't play fair on top of that. Words like enough and the theirs and location, or it's their room, that kind of thing. So it's all about putting those 2 sensory systems together. You guys with me? Yes. Makes sense? Now I want you to picture a cat. That's a whole different sensory system, right? And that's one word at a time. And if I went around the room, you'd all be able to tell me, oh, my cat's this color, this size, this shape. It's doing this activity. It's movement and sound, and all of that is really dynamic. So we have kind of 2 different imagery systems that we work with as good readers, spellers, listeners, comprehenders. And one is symbol imagery, that imagery that's static. C-A-T spells cat no matter what. But the dynamic part of that, the concept imagery that goes with it, what we call dual coding, we don't call it that, it's a theory of cognition. That's what we do as natural readers and learners and spellers. So how do we get students to be able to do that? Well, first we've got to identify where their weakness is, right? So you have a ton of people in your district who are trained to do just that now. So that was the first phase of what we did here in professional development. We trained these teachers how to basically assess students, and not even with a full battery of assessments. That was one component of it for those really severe students. But we also helped them work with their own data, and even just asking the right questions in real time to really diagnose what's going on with the student's learning. Right? Why aren't they able to access literacy and language? So that was the first phase. They've come, I think we've trained 96, are you ready for me to log in? You're so kind and patient. Just a bit of a break for you, just you have to listen to me talk for a second. Yay. Thank you so much for your help, by the way. So that was, we trained almost 100 of your staff to be able to do these programs in their classrooms. And we've kind of come to a fork in the road. I guess it's the best way to describe it. I'm trying to paint the picture now. So when we first started this initiative in 2015, since then we've trained 100 people. We've worked in the 4 elementaries is where it started with a grant that Kim Atkins here in the audience pursued. And we've seen some great results since then. What I think's happened though, when the grant ended, there was sort of the choice in the matter to decide, are we going to stick with this as is, or are we going to kind of do our own thing or take pieces of it? And what's really been fun is to watch, there's two elementaries, Bel Air and Robert E. Lee, that have taken this and embraced it in an RTI kind of way, in a really big way. I think bigger than we even saw it being, right? Yay! Thank you, and give a round of applause. Amazing. Where is it? I shouldn't touch anything, maybe. There we go. Yay! Bravo, sir. Thank you so much. All right, so I think we're about halfway through the PowerPoint presentation. So yeah, I know. So just really quickly, just a quick review. That's what I'm talking about, the whole cat situation. I just gave you an example of that. I'm going to circle back to it in a second. I'm going to give you that project update. I have a student story, some student video, a student here from Tullahoma reading when she first started instruction, and a little short video of her reading just this last spring. So that's really exciting for me to share that with you. And then looking ahead for 2018-19 and beyond, actually. So this is that cat. Here's a visual representation. Now that you've experienced it, here's what it looks like in sort of a kind of visual display. That auditory processing, the sounds in the word cat, that's phonemic awareness. We all know that that's important. Symbol imagery and basic word attack skills, right? Being able to take a small word and decode it, or take a large word and be able to break that up. So it's from the simple to the very complex. The visual piece is, like I said, just as important, but it's not just any one of these circles working in isolation. These two need to be integrated, right? That's what we do as fluent readers. And then I said, hey, picture that cat, that's that language component. So we know this is the anchor, right? The why we read is comprehension and for knowledge, and if you can't make the movie when you read, then you're not picturing, you're not comprehending. And so I think this is what we're seeing with a lot of our students, and this is something that's being studied way beyond our sort of force field of literacy. It's beyond that. We're talking about a generation that is really overly stimulated visually, right? They see a lot of imagery come in, watching TV, playing video games. I'm not saying those things are bad. Anything in moderation is fine, but if you've got a predisposition to not making imagery when people talk to you or when you read something, that can be tricky. So we're kind of turning them into passive observers, right? So just something to think about. And then overall comprehension is bringing it all together, right? That's the why you read. So we're all caught up now with the slides, yay. All right, I'm going to talk a little bit about RTI in this context, because I think I said that before in my little intro, I think Tennessee's got it figured out. You're one of the, I think, trailblazers in RTI. You guys were doing RTI before it was cool every other place. So what's really exciting is to see Robert E. Lee and Bel Air, like I mentioned, they're sort of taking this beyond. So what we started out doing was this Tier 3 small group intervention piece per the grant. It was a special ed grant. And what they saw at the building level was, if this is working with our most severe students, why wouldn't we maybe use it as a kind of a safety net for those kiddos that aren't accessing language and literacy? And they've done just that. They've got some students that would have been on their way to an IEP, would have been a special ed label for them, and maybe lifelong label, and because they're reading, that they headed that off in the past. I mean, that's not necessarily their outcome now. And they're doing more and more of it, so they've gotten all of their classroom teachers trained in both seeing stars, which is decoding, and visualizing and verbalizing is the comprehension piece. And ultimately, because it's at a sensory level, making sure that all students can access literacy and language. And I'll talk more about that in just a few minutes. They're also doing some stuff in the classroom. Not all classrooms are doing Tier 2, and then they're still doing some pull-out in Tier 3. But the point is, they're aligning all of those tiers of instruction, not based on programs. So even if they're not doing seeing stars and visualizing and verbalizing, those are our programs, even if they're not doing those in like the purest form, they're using that sensory cognitive language to really get students to access all the content and curriculum. That's the whole point. And they're doing some really neat things with that. So I just have to give them a little plug on that for sure. The middle school, and I know we're going to be talking to the other middle school tomorrow afternoon. They're thinking about taking some of this on, I think, in a more formal way. We'll find out tomorrow. But the high school has been doing small groups since the beginning. Yeah, and I know we've had some staffing changes and folks moving around, so we're trying to keep up with that demand as well. But Gen Ed, I know Susan's here. Gen Ed's done a great job of getting all these folks trained, and Special Ed has taken on the coaching side, so they're bringing it all together, which is just really great. Here are some highlights from 2017-18. Like I said before, almost 100 folks have been trained since 2015. We are, and I think I've touched on this, but all the schools I just talked about have been doing that tier 3, which is that small group intervention, the really severe profile students. We're giving them that battery of assessments. Your teachers know how to do that. I think I'm giving a little bit of a refresher tomorrow to the high school folks. Making sure that they know how to administer those tests, but also to interpret the data and make good, sound instructional decisions based on that information. But not just based on just the data itself, but also teacher observation. That's just as important. You know, no test is perfect. So you've got to be able to take the big picture into account, and they do a dynamite job at that. They know their students, for sure. Like I said, Robert E. Lee and Bel Air have expanded into Tier 1. They're doing lots of great PLC meetings. I was visiting with Woody today, and he was mentioning how they're working smarter, not harder. They're bringing those PLC meetings in a really strategic way and getting in and out of there, but talking about all the students they need to team and move. And yes, he says it's better than ever. So I'm glad to hear that. I know that they used to be, I think, 2 hours long or something, and he was like, these have got to be shorter. So his team's doing a great job there. Last school year, we provided right around 40 coaching sessions per month. I kind of feel like that's potentially going to expand this school year. I think what we're going to try and do is really leverage some of those visits and double up on some of them so that other teachers can see some really great, effective teaching from those staff that have done this before. So trying to leverage some of that capacity building definitely is a goal of ours. This is the aggregate data from last year, and I'm just going to walk you through some of the points here so you don't have to try and decipher all of it. I put up the decoding focus because that's the bulk of what we're doing here. That's what we can report on the aggregate. We have enough students to average them all out together and say these are the results for the students that aren't able to sound out the words and students who don't recognize sight words. This is their program. This is what we end up using in that environment, in a small Tier 3 environment. So if you can sort of take a big snapshot here, these are the component parts of reading that we address here. These are not really the ones that we're working on. It's really more about that symbol imagery, being able to picture the letters and words, sounding out words in isolation, word recognition, those are sight words, reading and spelling, and this is overall fluency. And we know that accuracy is the first thing to come, which makes sense, right? To be accurate, you have to truly be accurate before you can be a fast reader. The converse of that would be a student who guesses a lot, but gets through it really quickly. Your rate would be high there. In this case, this is a little bit more of an accurate reader profile. And then fluency is the aggregate of the two, just this plus this averaged out. So we saw some decent results there. I will say, though, this is probably, and I know it's hard to protect that time. It's hard to really make sure we build it into the schedule. So just to give you an idea, we started out a few years ago doing right around 100 hours of instruction over the course of the school year, and that average has come down a bit. And the schools know that, and they're working on it. So it's not there's no magic bullet. It's just a matter of getting a lot of adults with a big schedule to try and figure out how it's all going to work for everyone. So they are working on it. I would say that East Middle probably has the largest implementation. I think the bulk of those students up here out of the 39, mid-20s, the bulk of the students are coming from the middle school. And I didn't put this up here, but Kim reminded me today that keep in mind that when we're seeing students in middle school for reading, decoding issues, the idea of doing this in the classroom, K to 3, heading off those big literacy gaps before they emerge, right? That's the goal. So I think we're going to see that go down over the next couple of years. That's our hope, and for sure I think that we've got the capacity to do it. And you'll get a full data report on all of this, by the way, so don't worry about remembering it right this second. I'll send you a full report. I want to show you a student this was brought to my attention this last spring. We have our end of year celebration for all of my staff in my division, and one of my project directors shared, and we got permission from the mom to actually film this student over at Robert E. Lee, and we showed this to my staff because it was a big celebration for us. We'd all been following this kiddo for a couple of years. We go back and talk about instructional, challenges and how we're all going to solve it in a really clinical kind of way. And this was just a great thing to see. So I just wanted to share it with you because it's one of your students, and it's you've got a great staff over there working with her. Well, I think she's moved schools, but she's so she was in 2nd grade when we started with her, but she was reading right around the kindergarten level. And I have video of her in 2nd grade, and I have video of her in 4th grade. So I'm going to show you the pre and post there. She actually received mostly decoding intervention at first. We switched over to the comprehension, so you can see the bulk of her instruction's been in decoding. And she definitely saw some comprehension deficits, but she's moved from kinder to 3rd grade in comprehension, kinder to 4th grade in fluency, and that would be the next frontier for her, is to make sure that she has that comprehension access. Because as I said before, that's why we read, right? So she's on her way, for sure. So you all ready to watch her? Mm-hmm. Get a break from me talking for just a minute. And if you asked her after that passage, we don't have the questions that we asked her, but she doesn't comprehend what she's reading.
Right.
Yeah. And so now, what you're going to see in the next slide, and I'm afraid to touch it. There you go.
Oh, wow.
She's older now.
This father was in a total tizzy. I am late for a lunch date. She said, but I must find an umbrella before I go. They say it is going to rain cats and dogs.
And to ask her what she read, she can tell you. And so there's even an idiom in there. We were just talking about raining cats and dogs on the way in. Thank you so much. So that is just a little snippet of all the great work going on there. Really quickly, I'm going to just advance this and be done with it and let you off the hook. I think I've talked about most of our to-dos moving forward, continuing to expand into Tier 1, making sure that those students have access to literacy and language before it becomes a gap is always a really great way to be proactive, obviously. Continue to protect Tier 3 time. I think one of the things everyone's curious about, and I know, Susan, you raised a good point about this a couple months ago, making sure that we're building capacity at the building level so that this is something that they can do without us. I mean, that's the whole point. We're supposed to be working ourselves out of a job here. So I think with the staff changes and movements, we're catching up to that. So hopefully we'll have a plan for that moving out of this school year. And I know that there's some really cool stuff going on with the Parent Summit that Kim's been working on. So we're going to be a part of that twice this school year. I know you're running it 3 times, but I think we'll be a part of it twice. So yay, we've got lots of, and there's more than this to sort of cover. But I wanted to leave time for questions. You guys have been awesome. Thanks again for the help from the back. Any questions you might have for me?
Yes. Is there any reason that East Lincoln and Fair are not participating in the program?
It's been left up to the principals, so I don't really have a good answer for you. It really would be their choice to do it, for sure. They definitely have folks trained there. You know, out of the almost 100 people, there's still some staff there. A few of those staff have left, so there could be a couple of folks that aren't there anymore, but overall they still have people trained, for sure.
Okay. Are they still doing the program at those schools, or?
And they use some other programs as well.
Okay.
So they have some other intervention programs.
I know that when we had the reading specialists come, when we had the retreat, one of the programs that they definitely use a lot from Murfreesboro was the Linda Moonville program.
Yes.
So, and we were all like, well, we have that. So.
Yeah.
Okay, we're always happy to go wherever, so if that ends up being an opportunity, we're always happy to do it, yeah. But we can't help ourselves, we always want to be in the classroom, so.
But you said you're going to meet at West?
Yeah, we're meeting with Cindy tomorrow, yeah.
They did it at West year before last, but last year they did, resources and and they just couldn't free up the people that were trained. And so we're going to go down the road again tomorrow because they can tell all the difference in the world when the students at the high school, they tell us that they can tell the difference when the students come to them that have been through it and those that haven't. And we've got it going good at East, so we want to try to get that.
How many do you know how many students are in it in the high school?
I don't.
You know what, I think we'll know more tomorrow. I think part of it is they have the person who had the most capacity, she's moved over to the CDC room. So the reading groups that we traditionally have there, like in the resource rooms, we have a new person there, and she just went to the training a couple weeks ago. So she's, we're starting her from scratch, basically, yeah.
I'd like to know the per students at what schools, if you get that to Susan, where she can
Yes,
get
for
it to
sure.
us.
I would like to
Absolutely.
know too.
I'd be happy to send that to you, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice
Well,
presentation.
thank you very much. Hey,
Thank you.
you guys are so patient.
I just have one question.
Sure.
I know it was not determined to be statistically significant, but what did you attribute the drop in the comprehension and vocabulary to?
You know, I can't say for sure this is in its entirety, this is the answer. I will say what we see anecdotally, when students start to slow down and really read, they're picturing. So it's, you know, I could only say that the raw scores, I checked on the raw scores, there's not a huge difference in raw scores, and part of it is they're older when they take the test the second time around. So that's a percentile, and chronological age is the determining factor of that. But we do see students drop in their comprehension a bit when they start to get on the page. The idea, and the thing I'm really more worried about is you saw the fluency scores, they're still down there. And part of the problem, and it is a problem, it's a nationwide problem. I think once we give students the requisite skills to actually read, the parts are all there, they don't necessarily just go out and do that. It's not a habit for them, especially the older they are. It's frightening, they hate it, they think it's boring, and it's still slow. So if we're not, and this is what I'm really excited about the Parent Summit, because there's some things, we call them tips for home events. So we go to parent events, literacy nights, and make sure parents know how to do that thing at home, reading with their students. I think a lot of times students that are behind in reading go home with books that are way too difficult for them, or they're reading, it's not an independent level. So if the parents struggle at all with that skill as well, right? Or the student's completely on shutdown mode because they're not reading easily. I almost said eating. You can tell I'm hungry. Not reading easily. Everyone shuts down at home, and it's like it becomes it becomes a chore. It's not something they love to do. And what I always tell teachers when I first start with them, and I did this with your staff too, and I could do this all with you. Think about the thing you're worst at, right? For me, it's art. But if you really think about the thing that you're worst at, now I want you to picture yourself doing it every single day. Picture yourself making a living at it. Picture yourself doing it in front of your peers, right? Oh, and by the way, I want you to like it. That's reading for them. So now that they can read, the next big hurdle is how do we get them to make it a habit? So picking the right books for them, making sure parents know how to do that thing at home. I think it's also helping them find the right books. You know, not just at the right level, but high interest. And so one of the things that we did over at the middle school and the high school last year, I went around and got to visit all the small groups, and the first question I asked them was, hey, what's your favorite kind of movie? They all like to watch movies. So if they liked funny movies, or if they liked adventure movies, or science fiction, I said, okay, pick your book, and I'm going to send it to you. And we did. The teacher sent me complete lists, and I sent books to those guys. It was just a really easy thing for us to do, but I hope that sparked something in them. But that's just one person doing that. I think if we make it an initiative that's district-wide, everyone reads all the time. And I've got districts trying to take that on. It's hard, though. It really is. But
Were any of those English language learners, and is there a way to differentiate that?
I love that question. We work with a lot of second language learners in a lot of other districts. I think we probably have a few here.
Probably a few.
Yeah.
We did not desegregate that out. The majority of those students on this presentation were middle school and already identified in special education. So I think that is also another issue with the comprehension. If you look back to when you did your first presentation, it was all elementary.
Yeah, that's right.
And so the comprehension gap and the decoding gap wasn't as big because they're young.
Right.
But when you're middle school and you're decoding at the first and second grade, but you're middle school, the gap is huge. So it's harder to close that in comprehension in a 2-year span.
And the interesting thing is, if you've ever been in the classroom, and I should be over here so y'all can see me, not to crane your head, sorry. It's okay. If you think about how students present on paper, EL students present the same as special ed. They're both underperforming, but for different reasons. I think the other bucket to look at, too, is special ed in general, considering that more than 80% of students on IEPs in this country are there because of literacy only. I mean, that's roughly almost 500 students in your district, and out of that 500, almost 400 of them are there because of literacy. So if we address that at a tier 1, level, in K-2, those kids are reading. So decoding's not a higher thinking skill. So if we can give them access to that, that's the number one thing, right? We've got true learning disabled kids on IEPs, not kids that just didn't learn how to read. Yeah.
What about, 2 quick questions. One is, can you explain to me what kind of process you guys use as far as the pre-test and the post-test? Is that one you developed? yourself?
No, they're all nationally normed, standardized tests. So we have just the range. In our learning centers, we have private learning centers that have a much more robust battery. Ours is it's 7 tests, and it measures the 5 component parts of reading.
Okay.
But not in isolation, all kind of, in relationship to one another. So we have a Peabody Picture vocabulary test, so it's oral receptive vocabulary, not academic vocabulary. Kids don't have to know how to read at all to do that. It's normed down to 3 years old, up to adult. We have a nonsense word in isolation word attack test. We have a sight word reading and spelling component. We have the GORT 4, which is the rate, accuracy, and then equals fluency. And there's also a comprehension measure with that. We do an oral directions, so oral listening comprehension assessment that really just measures students' ability to follow oral directions. And then we have the symbol imagery test, which really just assesses that, can you picture the letters that go for those sounds type of exercise. But yeah, they're all normed and standardized. Yeah.
What about, then the only other, this is just kind of a random question is,
Sure.
audiobooks for children. Because I did a lot for my kids so that when we're driving on a long
That's
trip,
great, yeah.
I'm like, okay, listen to this book. And they'd be back there just cackling, laughing.
And why are they cackling and laughing? Because they can picture it.
Yeah.
Right? They're making a movie while they're hearing
They're
those
listening
words.
to Judy
Yeah.
B. Jones and
Yeah.
she'd make, I mean, my husband one time, we didn't have the headphones. He was like, I've got to hear it too. I was like, yeah, I'm sorry. But he was laughing too.
Yeah.
So my question is that a really good option for parents who maybe, are struggling, at least if we have the audiobook for the child that they could?
It's not, I always think that's a great idea. If that's the thing holding them back, but what we would say in addition to intensive instruction, because what we're seeing in the research that we've been super fortunate to be a part of, not our data, not our study, we just provide the Seeing Stars instruction. So the program you have in your district, we've been a part of a lot of studies, but one that's really recent is out of University of Washington. They're doing a whole functional MRI study on scanning dyslexic brains pre-instruction and then post-Seeing Stars instruction, and we see the behavioral changes all the time, but they're seeing white matter increase in the brain, and that means connectivity increases. So the thing that you're doing is literally cutting edge on dyslexia is treatable now. So the most extreme example of what you're talking about, books on tape have been their best friend because their oral language comprehension's really developed, but they can't get the words off the page.
Right.
Well, there's a treatment for that now. I mean, and honestly, I'm going to be super blunt. I say this to these guys all the time. The bottom line is we're creating those profiles because we're not teaching teachers how to teach reading. I see this every place I go. I was one of those people. So I think that some folks are getting that kind of preparation in their credentialing program, but so many aren't. So what happens is when you don't know how to teach to 100% of your kids, only 80% of them, we're creating those profiles. They end up following all these workarounds and compensations because they can't get the words off the page, they figure it out because they're super bright. But they can't access this thing that's our currency, which is language, right? Yeah. It's a great question. I think it's a really great thing to use in conjunction with
Just a tool.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I used to volunteer in an adult literacy program, and then I just wondered what resources are available for adults?
We see adults in our private learning centers all the time, and you live in such a tight-knit community. If you ever have any sort of place to hold it, any sort of volunteers, maybe yourself, we'll add that on to our current partnership. We wouldn't charge any extra to coach the professionals volunteering to do that. We've been involved in a couple of family literacy initiatives, adult literacy in really rural communities like up in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, on a Navajo reservation in Gallup. We've done pockets of that, but as you can imagine, the logistical, financial constraints of it, getting folks there, keeping your buildings open with your lights on and air conditioning going and all of that, all those logistical things get in the way. But it's absolutely cyclical, right? We see it over and over and over again. A lot of these kids that struggle with this have parents who struggle with it. And it's such a stigma. They don't volunteer to come out and, hey, I want to learn how to read. No one wants to admit that they don't know how to read. Yeah. But yeah, we'll do all of that for adults. So we have tons of data for the adult population. We've worked in correctional facilities, in pretty strict environments in youth and also in adults. So it's, great question. You guys are just one of my favorite places to visit for this very reason. So, any other ones? I hope I didn't wear out my
It was a
welcome.
great presentation.
Thank you very
But
much.
I want you to know I'm going to be disappointed tomorrow when I find out Mr. Bond has resigned. And I'm going to be even more disappointed when I find out he's gone to work for Linda Moon.
I promise I will not poach any of your people. Cross my heart. Thank
Can I tell you a quick, a funny, Alice reminded me, last spring, my husband and I were camping out at Woods Reservoir, and there was a student out there camping that Alice had worked with. And I went and observed Alice, and so that's how this boy associated me with Alice. So I didn't even know who that was down there playing in the lake or whatever. So he saw me, and apparently he runs up to his mom. He goes, "Hey, Mom." He goes, "That's Miss Linda McBell. She changed my life." And then later on, the mother came up to our campsite, and she wanted to introduce herself.
She saved my life is all you needed to hear.
But I said, I wasn't Miss Linda McBell, and I didn't save his life, but she probably did.
That's cute. That is so cute. I love that story. Thanks again, folks. I appreciate you.
Thank you. All right. I've got a lengthy maintenance report, but I'm going to crank it back down. And Tim Jensen gave us an extensive list of everything he's done during a 2-month summer break. And I've asked Dr. Lawson to email that to everybody tomorrow, and I'll just hit the highlights. We'll try to proceed.
He's already done it, yes.
Perfect. We have gotten, who wrote the safety grant?
Mike is writing the safety grant, as well as Officer Willie Young. So we sent 2 people to be trained. Safety grant is due next week. So Mike and Mr. Young are writing that as we speak.
We do anticipate getting 70,000 to 80,000 from that grant, and there's a product out we could put in high-risk classrooms like special ed where there's some health problems, and the teacher would have a lanyard with an alarm on it that would tie into cameras and speakers and so forth in the ceiling, and it really is a way that we could boost. And at some time it'd be great if we had it in every classroom, but we'll take some small steps to that. We've got the engineering report back from Bel Air, where we've had the maintenance committees has seen water problems since we initiated the maintenance committee, and in truth, there's been moisture problems over there since the 50s when it was first designed. When it was designed, it was a wet lot with a spring close by, and it was designed to bring the water into the building. If you can imagine that. And we've got an engineering report that tells us that we can get the drainage off, building up the grade, getting new drain pipes that would connect the storm system up the street, those kind of things, but it's not going to be cheap. We're talking somewhere probably in the neighborhood of 350 to 500,000. We've got plenty to cover that in the reserves, and I would ask Dr. Lawson to put that on the study session next to go. The whole board can look at it more in detail. We're in desperate need of more pre-K rooms. Farrah is in need of a suitable cafeteria, and we had an architect look at that. There's no way that we can fund that ourselves. That would probably at some point have to be done when we have some freedom left from the sales tax sinking fund. We've got some proposed drawings, and at some point that would come to the study sessions too. But first thing is we need to look at Bel Air. You're going to see a whole lot of maintenance coming up in that report. 2 things I would point out. If you get down in the auxiliary gym, the insulation that was in the roof line looked horrible. It had been broken, and insulation was hanging out. That has been repaired. It looks 100% better, and a new AC unit has been hooked up down there too. That's going to be a much more usable gym in the future. And one area that I would like every board member at some time in the next month or so take some time to go down to Old West. The pre-K room down there's a wall been taken out, and the size is at least double, and we were able to do that in staff. And it's a really nice project. So everybody take some time to go to Old West and see that addition. Is there any questions on what we reported on? Ms. Lawson or Dr. Lynn or anybody? You'll have a detailed report, and I mean detailed. That 2 month wasn't relaxing time for the maintenance people.
Yeah.
All All right. 17-18 budget amendment. Dr. Lawson.
As you know, our operating budget is approved by the city of Tullahoma. We sent a budget last year with an amount that we said we were going to expend, and we expended greater than that amount. It's not a surprise, it simply requires an amendment both here and at City Hall. If the question is raised, why in the world did we spend almost $300,000 more than we had budgeted as an expenditure? I can give you 2 quick reasons that we did that. We effected last November a bonus for every employee, and then in February we changed our salary schedule for our non-certified employees. So the budget amendment is simply asking this board to authorize us to spend what you've said we're going to spend in both a motion that you made in November to give a bonus and a motion that you made in February to increase your budgeted expenditures for our non-certified staff. Don't let the 298 scare you, because we brought in, as we closed the budget, we brought in a black budget to the tune of almost $400,000, Mike?
Not quite that much.
Okay. So we're still in the black by greater than the 298. Is that a safe statement?
Yes.
Great.
Any questions? I'll entertain a motion then to amend the 17-18 budget, please.
So moved.
A motion by Ms. Johnson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Robinson. Everybody understand the motion? And we're going to vote with hands until we finally learn how to use our computers. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Is that more efficient, Ms. Sandy?
Works.
Great. Audit results. The Finance Committee being Ms. Johnson and I met with Mr. Rodley and Dr. Lawson and went over the budget, or the audit, which is this part, and it's that book that I think everybody's got a couple of copies of. Mr. Rodley pointed out he thought I had 6 and had to borrow this one tonight. Remember, the numbers are actually about 15 months old. We've gone over them numerous times. There were no findings in them, but there had been a suggestion in the back that we try to find at one position where there's money going through, that there would be some sort of dual control, and at some point they would like somebody with a CPA designation in that spot. And prior to this, I guess it started sometime in the summer. Ms. Rogers has come on board. We got her from Householder. She is a CPA, and there's a position. The person that was doing her job is going half-time, so there's 2 people down there, and we have a CPA. And that suggestion in the back has been the main thing that's been taken care of. But we need to have a motion and a second majority to accept this part of the audit. When I say part, I'm talking about this is a part of the whole city audit.
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Fogarty. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Ms. Usleton. Any further questions or comments? If not, if you're for the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Policies. Ms. Johnson, you assured me you'd be ready tonight. There's numbers.
The numbers for the motion. For the
Policies. Help the director, help us. Do you have them? Who's got
Are
them?
you talking about the?
I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Yeah.
The policies, number 4, unfinished business.
I have policies, I don't have any written changes to those policies, but I'm presenting them as TSBA presented them, and as I talked about them at the.
Are you talking about service animal?
No.
No. This is
No,
the
I'm
ones
talking
that
about, we had about a stack of about 8
It's the-
that we said that we
Yeah,
needed a motion.
yeah.
Mr. Miller said it'd be good to have them by number.
I'm with you. I now follow what you're saying.
Is that what we're doing tonight?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And
you're
the
correct.
list of items.
Did I forget to do something? And you said one of them would require something special.
It's all
You
right.
One of them had
indicated,
to be removed because it has to go twice.
Yes.
you
And I had the
indicated that you
numbers
would
and the-
make a motion by numbers of those policies.
He can give us a cheat sheet. Do you have a
But
cheat
that's
sheet
no
we
big
can
deal.
use the numbers with?
Yeah, I can read them.
Yeah,
That'd be great. We'll let Greg read them.
You read them, Ms. Johnson can say she made the motion.
And I go, yeah, yeah.
These are the policies recommended for minor adjustments for policy 3600, for policy 4700, for policy 5106, for policy 5118, for policy 52203, for policy 5305, policy 5802, policy 6.300, policy 6.309, and finally policy 6.409. They all have one sentence that's changed, that needs changed, they're required to be changed by law, and
And all of them have been reviewed by Mr. Miller prior to the study session. Did you, and you already removed the one that we will have to have 2 readings on?
yes, it's next
Okay.
later.
We have a motion by Ms. Johnson, and be sure that, Sandy, that you check with her for correct hyphen placement. And we have a second by Dr. Lynn. Any further discussion? If not, if you're for that motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, Greg, help us with the one that is now the proper time for the one that's got 2 readings?
New business
No,
items.
it's later. It's-
I see it now, 4.608. All right, new business. Is this a, do we have to vote on the notice?
You do not, sir. You have provided that notice. This is just an opportunity for you to share that publicly.
We will have a special call meeting on September the 5th at 5:30 to consider extending the contract to a finalist for the new director of schools. Number 2, Clyde Smith Junior Leadership Award. We've designated a person, I think, or agreed to one at study session, and that is Dr. Diane Sawyer. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Lawson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. Fogarty. Any further discussion other than saying that she will be a tremendous addition to that award list? If not, if you're for that designation, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Thank you all. Ms. Sandy has been in contact with her family, and tentatively, we will be able to recognize her on the October 5th regular session, but we haven't got that confirmed yet. And I hope that, Aaron, that you can get with us and get a nice write-up on her. Consent agenda. Is there any item in the consent agenda that needs to be removed?
What about the board policy?
I'm sorry. Help me, Greg. Excuse me.
This is a policy that is new, so it must be read twice. And it basically says, Tullahoma City Schools shall not retaliate against any employee who brings unauthorized transcript alterations to the attention of school officials. Policy 4.608, and it will be on the next school board agenda.
Okay. We have a motion to pass that on first reading. Policy 4.608.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, ma'am.
Second.
Motion by Ms. Johnson and seconded by Dr. Lynn. Any further discussion? If not, if you're for the motion, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Is there any item of the consent agenda that needs to be removed for further discussion?
Are you going to elaborate on item number 3 in that bracket?
We can remove it and do that.
Uh-huh.
Let's remove it. Let's remove it.
No, not remove it. I mean, I thought we were going to vote on it during this meeting. But as I understand it, there's one student that it doesn't apply to. But are we making a broad,
No, ma'am.
or was this just an exceptional?
Yeah, let's talk about that just a little bit.
Let's go ahead and remove it.
Okay, very good.
That's fine. That's going to be fine. Let's pass the consent agenda with 1 and 2. Get a motion there, and then we'll get to that. We have a
So
motion.
moved.
Got a motion. Ms. Robinson, do we have a second?
Second.
Second. By Ms. Lawson. Any further discussion? If you further consent agenda items 1 and 2, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Now, let's go with number 3, Dr. Lawson.
Tennessee State Board of Education mandates a prescribed course of studies to be awarded a diploma in the state of Tennessee. The Tullahoma Board of Education adds to that course of studies to the tune of 4 additional credits. On occasion, we will have a student who has moved, a student who has faced health challenges, a student who warrants an exception from our policy, not from the state, but from our policy. And on those exceptions, this is a board policy and a board expectation, and only you as a board may waive those credits. So we have a young man who did not meet, who met the state requirements, but did not meet the Tullahoma requirements. And that was based on the fact that he was not here, he was elsewhere. So the recommendation of high school, of Susan and myself, is to waive those requirements in this young man's consideration. But to answer your bigger question, is this a global waiving of the policy? No, ma'am, it's an exception for a child.
Right. Okay, that explanation, is there a motion to accept that waiver?
I'll make that motion.
Motion by Ms. Lawson. Do we have a second? Second. By Ms. Johnson. Any further? If the motion, please respond by raising your hand. Any opposed? Thank you. Before Dr. Lawson's report, I've had what I believe would be described as a supermajority of y'all wish that with incoming changes that we keep a little hint of stability by keeping the committees the same, and also particularly the school assignments. And I had Ms. Vaughn type them back up. If somebody has a problem, please see me later. Okay, and please, on your school assignments, start reaching out, please. Dr. Lawson.
Ms. King, welcome. It's good to see you back at the meeting this
It is
evening.
good.
And the floor is yours, ma'am.
I apologize for having conflicting meetings and had a planning commission that lasted long, so I apologize for my tardiness. First of all, I want to congratulate Dr. Lynn and Amy Johnson on their current reelection. And next Monday, August the 27th at 4:30 p.m., the Board of Mayor and Aldermen will be having a meet and greet from 4:30 to 5:30 before our regular scheduled meeting. We have included everyone that was reelected in the city for the Board of Education and also the county. So we've invited those, and the public is encouraged to attend as well. So if you would like to attend that.
Mr. King, is the swearing-in ceremony immediately following that? Thank you.
And then last week, 2 weeks ago, we did vote to hire Jennifer Moody from Murfreesboro. She will be our new city administrator, and she will be starting on September the 10th. So we're all excited about her coming in and taking over the position. So, as you can tell, Publix is making a lot of headway, and we're still expecting an opening in October. We do not have a specific date as of right now, but it will be the middle to latter part of October. So we're excited about that. So that's all I have. Unless y'all have a question.
There's cement curving put in the parking lot. I know it's 2 weeks ago, and that's a sign that you're getting closer.
Yes. You'll be seeing the street light, the red light be going up too. So there's a lot of work still to be done, but it's moving a lot quicker.
I would like to just congratulate the city on the transparency that it was in the paper. You spelled out all the details, all types of compensation for the person. I think that's good. The public appreciates it. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Lawson.
I think the biggest report that I will have relates to the last 14 days of school. We are up by about 45 kids from this point in time last year, which has been great news for us in that we are up in that number, but not in a particular spot that compelled us to add personnel. Typically, we will do a census the first 8 to 10 days of school, and once that 8th day is gone, we are typically in pretty good shape for the balance of the year. We have seen a decline that we didn't forecast and didn't expect at East Lincoln, and we are seeing a pretty good population increase at both Robert E. Lee and then correspondingly feeding into East Middle. So the bottom line from a personnel perspective is we had to move one person from one school to another. We always hate to do that, but it's not a precise art until we actually have kids show up at school and make the school day start and school year start. Overall, we are happy with the start of the school year. The weather has been cooperative. The population has been good. So we're thankful for the start that we've enjoyed. We have Mr. Carver meeting with and for those of you on TV, Mr. Carver is the finalist meeting with our elementary faculties on this Wednesday afternoon. He will open the day at East Lincoln. I want to make sure I had that one right. East Lincoln with the East Lincoln and Robert E. Lee staff at about 1:20, and then at 2:30 on the way to Jack T. Farah with Jack T. Farah and Bel Air staff. Then on the 29th, a week later, Mr. Carver will be at East Middle School, followed by West Middle School, followed by Tullahoma High School, and then a community interaction at 5 o'clock at the Toma Lecture Hall at Tullahoma High School. So we would certainly invite folks to come out to any and all of those opportunities to visit with Mr. Carver and to share with him. I think you'll find him very pleasant, very visionary in his work, and I think he will do a wonderful job as a transition is effective. And that's it, sir.
Thank you. And in our quest to run a more formal meeting and one that follows parliamentary procedure, I refuse to adjourn by myself anymore. I have to ask for a motion for adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion by Ms. Fogel. Do we have a second? Second by Ms. Johnson. Any further discussion? Before the motion to adjourn, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Good night. Thank you all.
Dan, is that visit?